Hello, my name is Marcus Schroeder. I will be your next speaker. Before I begin this speech, I do have to say it contains potentially intense or sensitive material, so it's not appropriate for all audiences. Alright, with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. All that it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. The year was 1944. Robert Babel was flying his fighter plane over Nazi Germany, having been given one mission: bomb the enemy. But while on that United States Air Force plane, there was only one thing that Robert Babel could keep thinking: just don't get shot down. The mission seemed to proceed as planned. Everything was going well. Robert was bombing the enemy, when all of a sudden, BAM! A loud crash blared behind him, shaking the entire plane. The world around him started to spin into blurriness. Robert felt as if he had lost all control of the plane, unable to think, unable to stop himself from realizing the inevitable. Mayday, mayday! Robert Babel had been shot down over Nazi Germany. As his plane continued to fall through the sky, Robert realized there was only one option left. He hit eject and parachuted to the ground. After landing, Robert was taken prisoner and captured by the Nazis and taken away to one of their prisoner of war camps. Robert had taken a stand for freedom and for liberty. And while Adolf Hitler was murdering millions of people in Germany, Robert had acted as a hero and fought that great injustice. January 22nd, 1973. The United States Supreme Court issues Roe v. Wade, unleashing a silent Holocaust: abortion. Little children who are being ripped apart limb by limb are screaming, "Where are the heroes?" In today's speech, I'd like to persuade you to rise up and to join the heroes who fight abortion. We'll be looking at three main points, starting with point 1, America's Holocaust. Babies in the womb are in what should be the most safe place they will ever be in, but yet in a matter of moments, without them knowing why, having done nothing wrong, it becomes the most dangerous. So they are forced to twist and squirm and fight for their lives. I'd like to tell you a story. In a field far off in Nazi Germany, there was a railroad track that ran behind a small church. Every Sunday, while Christians gathered inside the four walls of their church building, a train would pass by that was packed full of Jewish men, women, and children being carted away like cattle to the gas chambers. The Jewish captives inside the train would scream out for help to the Christians who were singing inside the church. The Christians heard the screams, but hearing the screams was disturbing their church service. The Christians decided that the only way to keep from being so disturbed was to start singing louder to drown out the noise. A few years later, 6 million Jews lay dead in cold blood. According to a national study, there are over 380,000 Christian churches in America. 173 million Christians living in this nation. Yet according to other studies, our culture murders over 2,000 children every single day. 65 million children executed since 1973. That means that from the time I started this speech till the time I will end it, almost another 40 American babies will be slaughtered. It is only when Christians remain silent that evil is able to devour its victims, to triumph in society. What does God have to say when people remain silent amidst injustice? Let's look at this in our second point: God's commands. It was a dark night in ancient Israel. The monotone yet rhythmic thundering of drums filled the cold night air. Screams could be heard. The screams of little children who were being burnt alive as child sacrifices to the false god Moloch. Ancient Israel, after having forsaken God, started burning their children alive to Moloch with the hopes that Moloch in return would bless them financially. Yet in the midst of this culture, there was still a small group of Israelites who refused to do such a thing and continued to only worship the one true God, but yet They remained indifferent to the child sacrifice their neighbors were doing, and they did nothing to stop it. It was to these Israelites that God said in Isaiah chapter 1, "When you spread out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves. Make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your deeds from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do good. Seek justice. Correct oppression. Bring justice to the fatherless. Plead the widow's cause." Later on, Jesus himself made a very scary prophecy about those who neglect the oppressed. He said that there will be a day when people will come to him and say, "Lord, Lord, look at all the things we did in your name." He will say, "Depart from me. I never knew you." But why? Because I was naked, and you did not clothe me. I was hungry, and you did not feed me. I was in prison, and you did not visit me. For as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. God commands that in the face of injustice, those who know him will act as heroes, take a stand for what is right, seek justice, correct oppression, and that those who don't have hands that are soaked in blood. Let's move on to our third and final point, the call to action. Today, yet another form of genocide and child sacrifice is ravaging this land. In order for us to end abortion, we need men and women like you to arise and to take action. Most likely there's an abortion clinic in your area where every single day little children are murdered. Go to this place and save them. These mothers need your help. They need to be told that there is another option. They need to be told the gospel. I still remember the first time I stood outside of an abortion clinic. I'll never forget the pain I saw of two of the women as they came out after having their children murdered. Tears were streaming down their faces as they held their hands over their now empty uteruses. You see, they were devastated because intrinsically they knew that abortion had not stopped them from being mothers. It only made them the mothers of dead babies. But yet, as devastating as that moment was, over the course of that week, God saved 11 precious children through our ministry. And although I have yet to have the opportunity, many of the more experienced people in my life have had the blessing to meet and hold the little boys and girls that they have helped save from abortion. Statistics show that when just 5 or more people stand outside of an abortion clinic, up to 75% of their appointments never show up because the mothers see you gathered and decide not to come in. So what's holding you back? It's time that you go stand outside one of these places and speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. I'd like to go back to my opening story. Robert Babel, after being captured by the Nazis, was locked away in this prisoner of war camp. Every day he would look to the gates of the camp, hoping that one day he would see American soldiers there who would come to free him. But no Americans came. Weeks passed, then months. 2 years went by. There Robert was, isolated from family and friends, thousands of miles away from home. He felt as if help would never come. Then one day, there was a rumble of military vehicles outside of the camp. Robert looked up, expecting to see the normal Nazi soldiers, but that is not what he saw. Out of those vehicles stepped uniforms with American flags on them. It was the Americans, the Americans. The war was over, we had won, and justice had prevailed. The soldiers were there to bring him home. Robert Babel was my great-grandfather. He left a legacy that I will never forget because Robert sacrificed so that others may live. Throughout history, when injustice raises its head, Cowardice too often keeps good men and women silent. But every once in a while, a Robert Babel arises. A Corrie ten Boom arises. A Frederick Douglass arises. A Harriet Tubman arises, who stand up and answer the call to seek justice and correct oppression unashamedly and unabashedly. Men and women who say, in the words of Ethelwyn Weatherall, "My orders are to fight. Then if I bleed or fail or strongly win, what matters it? God only doth prevail." I was not told to win or to lose. My orders are to fight.